We call the council work session Batesburg-Leesville Town Hall, 6 March 26th. Call it to order. And if I could ask Councilman Simpkins to say our invocation for us, please.
Let us pray. Father, we come now at the closing, Lord God, of another day that you have blessed us abundantly with, oh God, and we just want to thank you, Lord, come into our midst this evening, God, put us on one accord, Lord, that we may put our heads together to make the best decisions, to have the best discussion and interaction, Lord God, that will lead us to the best decision. And we know, God, that that decision is your will, God, so we thank you today. Bless the councilmen who are here, God, those who couldn't make it this evening. Bless all the administration, the staff, and all the citizens of our community. Continue to lift us up, God, and draw us closer to you. We ask your blessings upon this food, sanctified to the nourishment of your temple, our bodies. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to item 4, approval of agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second. Do I have a second? Second from Deloach. Any discussion? District 1? Yes. District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
District 3 votes yes.
4?
District 4 votes yes.
District 5? District 6?
Yes.
7?
Yes.
And mayor votes yes. Agenda is approved as listed. On to item 5, discussion topics. A, discussion intro to the town budget. And at this point in time, I will turn it over to Theodore Luckadoo.
Anybody want a copy of the agenda? Next thing following this is adjournment.
I didn't print one today. I knew what
Good evening, everyone. All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm trying to be like the cruise director on the cruise I was just on. I'm gonna stand here until you give me something back. All right, we are here tonight, not to talk about this year's budget, not to look at the current budget that we're in, but we have a lot of new members of council. I know Ms. Shirley, you were previously on and went through some budgets. We got Councilman Kane, Mayor Pro Tem Simpkins that have been through a number of budgets, and then Mr. Gambrill, who used to be in my shoes and prepare a lot of these budgets, so I know he understands a lot about municipal government.
What's the budget?
Alzheimer's is kicked in. But wanted to just give you an overview of budgeting and the budget process and what goes into this, the timelines, the process, everything regarding municipal budget. Tonight we're going to talk about what is the budget authorization process, what are the roles and responsibilities with regards to a budget, what are the different elements of a budget, the process. We're going to take a quick snapshot look at the 17-18 budget from the standpoint of how we presented that to council, as well as going ahead and starting the preparation for the 2018-19 budget, which has to be approved by June 30th of this year. So talking a little bit about the authorization of a budget. This is required by law that each political subdivision prepare and maintain an annual budget which provides sufficient income to meet the estimated expenses. It must be a balanced budget. Whether we're talking about the general fund, enterprise fund, or the victims assistance fund, each of the three must be balanced. An act of the municipal council in subsection 3 of the law section 57260, you guys are to adopt the budget pursuant to a public notice. And by town ordinance, chapter 4, section 146, subsection B, it is my responsibility to prepare the budget for you guys and to bring that to you guys. And then for us to talk about and ultimately for you to adopt. And we'll talk a little bit more about the preparation of this budget. So elements of a budget is more than just revenue and expenses. All right, it's an important resource and information tool to evaluate the plan for town services. We have our strategic plan for the town. We have a comprehensive plan for town, which as part of this budget, we will budget to have that updated. But this is a resource and a tool to look at those plans that we have and to be able to decide how are we going to move forward with the items that we have based on what our budget shows us from a revenue and expense standpoint. It offers the opportunity to match service plans with actual cost. It is creating measurables to town operations. It does force decisions to be made because council must prepare and enact a budget if local services are to be administered. So it's not easy when you get into municipal budgeting because I can promise you every department has different needs and every department does have needs. And it will force you to have to make decisions. There's never enough money when it comes to providing services. As you get more money, you spend more money on those services, and it only keeps the problem of needing more money going. So we are forced to make decisions. It acts as a meaningful decision-making device for future program planning. Let's talk about some general terms. When it gets down and we present you guys with the budget, these are terms that you may hear. Zero-based budgeting, which is what we utilize. So all expenses must be justified for each year. What I did at the very beginning of this process a few weeks ago is I went back to every line item in our budget and I put it at zero. We're zeroing out every line item. We don't just carry money from year to year. Now there may be a lot of line items that have $5,000 and it may have $5,000 again this year, but it wasn't just a rollover, it was zeroed out. We went back specifically looked at this line item. Revenue is just that, it's money coming into the town. Expenses is money that leaves the town. The general fund, all right, this is the fund that houses the police department budget, the fire department budget, street department, fleet department, our administration department. This is provided for by tax-based services, fees, franchise fees, local government fund. The enterprise fund is the water and sewer fund. And that is funded and paid for through the cost of water and sewer services that people pay on the utility bill. Now there is one general fund revenue that is administered through the utility enterprise fund, and that is the garbage that is transferred each month over to the general fund. It's just collected through the utility bill. Capital is equipment. That's not necessarily going to be a printer or a computer. We're talking vehicles, major equipment, loader backhoes, street sweepers, fire trucks, police vehicles, things of that nature. We consider capital equipment. Radios for the police department. Debt is, I think we all know what debt is. This is either general obligation bonds, revenue bonds, or lease purchases that the town has that we owe money on that we have to make an annual payment on. Fund balance refers to the difference between assets and liabilities. So you will hear us talk about fund balance more through this presentation, but also throughout the budgeting process. We have three funds. Any questions so far? Okay. We have three funds in the town budget: the general fund, enterprise fund, and victims assistance fund. By law, we have to have these funds separated. Each of these funds has its own set of revenues and set of expenditures. All three must be balanced at adoption, and each fund comprised of departments or functions of services. Like I said earlier, water and sewer is your wastewater treatment plant, water plant, utility maintenance crew, building department. Then you got, I listed all the general funds for you a while ago, and victims assistance is just that. It's victim assistance only. General fund is also court operations. So revenues, just kind of the evolution of what our revenues have done and how they've increased since 2014. We did a property tax increase in 2014.
This is bookie, it's okay.
In 2014 was the last time we did a property tax increase. Now in 2014 we did take advantage of an exemption to Act 388 that does allow you to increase the current year as well as the 3 years preceding that year if you've not increased taxes in 4 years consecutively. You can do it for that year and the 3 preceding years. That we did indeed do that in 2014. Business license, we were updated the business license ordinance for the first time. It was a little over 24 years since it had been updated, and that did lead to additional business license revenue for the town. The water base rate in 2016, we did a restructuring as well as an increase to base rates in 2016. Previously, in-town and out-of-town water and sewer customers paid the same base rate. We doubled the out-of-town base rate, and we also increased it by $5 on the in-town, and then doubled the out-of-town base rate. Garbage rates, again, we have not had control of these CPI. As a part of the contract with Advanced Disposal, it states in there that they can do a consumer price index adjustment on an annual basis. And in 2017, that was 34 cents per month for the year on their increase. So. On the expense side, some of the major changes that have occurred from 2014 to 2018, some of the biggest changes have been with wages for employees of the town. We just wanted to highlight some of the departments that have seen the largest changes. But when 2014, the street department, on average, employees were around $8 an hour, which accounted for, on a 40-hour work week, it was around $16,840 a year. We have been able to get them up across the board to $11.05 an hour currently. Police officers were starting around $11.90. They're starting now around $13.65. Utility distribution was around $8.90. Again, that was right around, I believe, $18,000, close to it. And they're now at $11.85.
So what's a skid
steer? It's your track mower. That's what we bought for the landfill with the high flow motion. All right, so moving on to capital replacement.
Because Bobcats have wheels instead of the truck.
You know what a Bobcat is?
Yeah, I'm saying, why didn't you say Bobcat?
Bobcat's not a brand.
It's a brand
It's actually
instead
a
of a
brand,
piece
yeah.
of the type of
Okay,
equipment.
all right, so it's
But
called
that's
a
what-
skid
Bob,
steer.
skid steer is what the unit's called. Bobcat's a brand.
So what's the other
Cat.
cat sounds like you
Bunch
do.
of them. Yeah, all kind of.
John Deere.
Yeah.
Oh, you act like you do that. You look at me like you do that.
So
Oh,
capital replacement, I know in 2014, we were in about a 600, I remember that presentation when we were in around a $600,000 capital equipment hole as far as needs, what we needed. And a lot of that was police cars. And there was other equipment such as skid steers and mowers and things, but a lot of those revenue enhancements that you've seen have gone towards the replacement of capital equipment. We've acquired 9 police cars since 2014. I believe at that time, if I remember correctly, we were around 15 cars that were over 100 to 125,000 miles as a whole. So we did do a lease purchase, which I'll discuss in a little bit to help with some of this capital replacement, a 5-year lease purchase. Economic development, on the expense side, we did do a revenue bond to complete the water and sewer infrastructure in the industrial park.
How much was that?
1.8 million. I'll talk about that. So, increasing responsibilities for the town. Code enforcement is something that we consistently see an increased need for people wanting neighbors' yards cleaned up or old buildings torn down, or you've hit one person about a banner at their business and they just highlight 6 other businesses that put a banner up that you have to go out and check on that. Annexation and growth. Anytime we annex or grow or have new places come in, our service levels do increase. I'm not going to say that they take off up a steep mountain, but there's a slow growth that occurs with the service level. Growth in town provided sponsored community events. I will tell you this, and our town events, outside of the poultry festival, that just continues to remain large and continues to grow, but fortunately they have their volunteer base that handles that. That is not a town related event. So what I'm talking about is National Night Out, it's the egg hunt, it's the Halloween Fall Festival that we do, the tree lighting, in conjunction with the Chamber's Christmas Parade. We've combined that together. But I don't know if y'all noticed, these events have grown tremendously over the past 4 years. And with that comes, as it continues to grow, that's more money that we have to put into it. And that's more people we have to pay overtime to be able to account for the large groups coming. So that service level is increasing. I do, since she's here, I do want to give a shout out to the Dreamcatchers group for all that they, Miss Susan sitting behind you, and all that they do to help us with these events. They come out with a huge group of people. They take on activities and games, and we appreciate it because we have an even harder time keeping up if it wasn't for them and what they do. Indigent defense. We're all well aware that that's something that's been put on us recently. And other state mandated. I think Lancer can speak from the school system, and I can speak for the town as well, as state mandates just continue to pour down. And whatever the county can release on us, the county wants to put on our backs too. So we're the end of the ladder, y'all. We're the bottom rung.
Without financing.
You're right. We are the bottom rung. We don't have, the only way people we can dump it off to is taxpayers. And nobody sitting at this table wants to. I certainly don't want to, at all costs. But these new costs from these mandates and people continuing to spread, all that does, it only makes it harder. Increasing liabilities, healthcare. I will tell you this, we have gotten a lot more stable with healthcare when we moved over to the PIBA system through the state. We were previously would just go out on our own and shop the market. When we got hit with a 40% increase 2 years ago, we had to back up, take a step back, and really evaluate the most stable place for us to be, to not have to deal with 19 to 40% increases on an annual basis, was the state healthcare system. And last year we saw 0.5% increase. Before that, I think the lowest we had seen was 19% in a given year. So it is a lot more stable. And we had a heavy load factor last year too. This year we had no load factor, so we know that we're not going to increase due to claims. But that does not mean the state's not going to do an incremental increase. We have not heard on that. Retirement, I think anybody, yeah. So the state's pretty much putting it to us on the retirement side right now. It's been well underfunded for quite some time. They've not been hitting their marks for years, and now it's in a major deficit, and everybody is having to pay up. We got hit with a 2% increase last year, and then it's 1% for the next 4 years. This is year number 2. We have another % increase this year, so that's a total of 3% the past 2 years. And then the next 3 years after this, we're going to see an additional 1% each year. Water and sewer upgrades and just aging infrastructure. I mean, we're talking increased liability. We're talking the need for water in the consent order. We've got our wastewater treatment plant needs. We've got our water plant needs. We've got old lines in the ground. Just increased liabilities on the water and sewer side. And capital replacement. If we're going to be successful in providing services, we've got to have the capital equipment to do it. And it's got to be in good shape. Talk a little bit about the outstanding debt we have for the town. General obligation bond. We got this bond in 2015. That is for these 2 buildings that we occupy as town hall now. We borrowed $350,000. That is not what we paid. We did receive $210,000 for the, oh gosh, was it $210,000?
Industrial park.
No, for the old town hall. For sure.
But did you get it in an appraisal for that building? I know what you sold it for. What was it worth?
I could do.
Okay.
So, anyway, it was a 10-year general obligation bond. We do have 8 payments. We're getting ready to make another one. Will we be down to 7 or will we be at 8 after this? I think we go down to 7 payments because we're getting ready to make our payment for this year on that. That's our payment each year, $39,660. Half is paid from the water and sewer and half is paid from the general fund. Revenue bond, again, this is for the water and sewer infrastructure in the industrial park. The payment for this fluctuates up and down on an annual basis, but each year it's right around $200,000 a year. It may go to $198,000 one year, $204,000 another year.
What are you paying for it?
That's just paid for out of revenue coming into town.
How long have we been paying that?
So we should be right at 7 payments left on that.
I'm talking about the industrial park. We paying $1.8 million.
At 2.28% over 10 years. Payments right around $200,000.
So we made 7 payments.
No, 3.
We made 3 payments on the industrial park. But that's
That
not.
was recent with the money, the matching money from Lincoln County.
Right, that was the 1.8 to put the water and sewer infrastructure in the ground.
Right, but that wasn't matching money.
No, they had their commitment to do the roads, lighting, signage, landscaping.
Yeah, I got that wrong, Steve.
Yeah, no, I'm just.
They had money in the game. I think we had to
Right.
put money in the game, otherwise they were pulling out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, that'll just be a topic for another day.
Okay.
Because 1.8 million that's not generating any money, any income in, is an issue. But another day.
And we have an outstanding lease purchase. With this, we purchased 5 police cars, the skid steer with the high flow mulching head, as well as a few other zero-turn mower. We bought a big industrial fan with it. We had a few other needs that we took care of with that. 5 years. We did a 5-year lease purchase on it. It was right around $305,000, and that's our annual payments around $64,600 a year. So the general fund is obligated to the general obligation bond of that amount, lease purchase of $64,700. The enterprise fund, water and sewer, received nothing out of the lease purchase that we did, so that is all tied to the general fund. And these numbers have previously been budgeted and will remain budgeted this year. The enterprise fund paying half of the new town hall general obligation fund and has full cost of the revenue bond. This year, it'll be $198,900 for that payment. And again, that has been budgeted, it's not something we have to come up with. So our annual debt as a percentage of the budget, so when you look at what we owe as far as debt payments in the general fund, it accounts for 2.2% of our general fund. And on our water enterprise, water and sewer side, the debt payments account for 7.1% of the annual operating budget. We can borrow, so our debt limits as a town, we can borrow 8% of the assessed value of taxable property. That's what we're allowed to borrow. So up to $1.2 million.
On which side?
That's going to be on the general fund side.
Yeah, but not, so what's the debt income ratio on the enterprise side?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I know I've sent it to you before, but I don't have it off the top of my head. Okay, so a snapshot going back to 2013-14 budget, 2017-18 budget being the current year, you'll see what our general fund budget's done. Back in 13-14, it was around 3.45 million. Right now, this year's budget was 3.86 million. And so you can see from year to year, this was the percentage change from year to year. At the bottom, victims assistance pretty much stays the same for the most part. And our enterprise fund, you can see where it has crept up. The biggest change from this to over here was when we made the change to the base rates. That's where you see that additional $200,000 come into play, was when we changed the base rates.
That's water and sewer base rate.
Correct. And what we did down here is just show you the CPI, what the CPI plus population growth was for the town that we could do towards, not these two, but the general fund. We could apply that towards the general fund for tax increase purposes. Now again, that one was utilized and this one was utilized because we did that year plus this year and the other 2 years in the 14-15 budget. But we have not utilized the 1.95, 0.58, and 1.43% since we increased taxes for this budget. Does that make sense? Okay. Just looking at the town staffing, going back to 2013 and what was budgeted for the 2018 year over here. I'm not going to sit and run through all the numbers. I'll just let you take a moment to look at where we budget. This is where we currently sit as far as, this is where we were budgeted for this year, and this is the current number of employees that we have working. Y'all good with that? It's also in your presentation. So, growth of the fund balance. You will see that there has been a growth during this process of our fund balance, which is all remaining money after expenses paid. Listen, we bring to you guys a balanced budget. Revenues match expenses. A budget is just a projection. If I could nail every line item, I would be the man. I'm telling you, you project it to the best of your ability based on the trends and what's occurred and what you expect to happen and what you anticipate doing. But sometimes you're going to exceed a line item. Sometimes you're going to be under on others. Things change. You expect a grant one year. You budget for that grant that year. You don't get it that year, and it comes the next year. It can throw your numbers all off. So there are a number of factors that can occur that throw your budget off But at the end of the day, what we have had is every year, we've not seen a loss as far as expenses outweigh revenues. Each year, we've seen the revenues outweigh the expenses. Going into a budget, there's a key concept. You always want to budget revenues low and expenses high. The reason for doing that is you don't want to go revenues high and expenses low. That's how you're more likely to operate at a deficit. We can always use excess funds towards future capital purchases and things that we need. But one component we need to do is we need to look at fund balances and establishing emergency reserves, which I can talk about a little bit more in a little bit.
Ted, let's go back to the previous slide for a second. Now, based upon these numbers, the staffing, which is the largest expense of the town, right? 323.18 compared to the entire year 2018. Should we come in under budget this year?
We should. Yes, sir.
Because the last 4 years we have either increased taxes or increased expenses and fees, right?
We increased nothing on the general fund side last year. Not on the general fund. It was not this, I don't think we increased anything this current budget that we're in right now. We had no increases to anything. The year before, we did the base rate increase to water and sewer. And that was the only thing that we did. The year before that, I don't think we had any increases. The year before that was business license. Budget before that was taxes.
But we made some cuts last year.
Made some cuts to...
Council stipend was cut because of a tight budget last year. So we have to increase fees or taxes or cut something in order to get in.
Because I can tell you, a lot of the costs that we pay go up on us. Now, one positive thing we have coming is if the Dominion SE&G merger does occur, we're looking at a 5% reduction in electricity bills. I can tell you from the town standpoint, how many meters we have?
Over 40.
Yeah, it's like 42 meters we have for the town, 42 electrical accounts. So you're talking about a lot of electricity used between our water and wastewater plants. We could see a reduction to utility bills.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Revenue goes down. Will we be getting $1,000 per meter?
Now, I heard Mr. Hall often say something that could affect the franchise fee that is paid to the town, because revenue brought into the company that could lower the franchise fee that we get from SE&G each year too. Sir.
Is that, everybody's supposed to get $1,000 refund? We get $1,000 refund per meter?
Municipalities are eligible for the refund, although $1,000 is an average based on what they come up with. It could be more than 1,000.
But we are eligible to receive it?
Yes, sir. So our school districts and churches
and residents.
And commercial businesses.
Right.
Ted, what is the legislature doing with the business license?
It's under attack every year.
Are they did they pass something that you take out? Okay.
I can tell you this, there's a couple things, and these are not challenges that we put in here, but I do want to highlight them real quick. Number one, local government fund hasn't been fully funded in. I believe we are in the 9th year of that not being fully funded. It will never be fully funded again, I can assure you. They will tell you that. They told us that at Hometown Legislative Action Day. It will never be fully funded again. We lose right around $51,000 a year off of that. Okay. The other thing is business license is under attack on an annual basis. You have different legislators. reps that come to get voted in, they own, most of them own their own businesses. A lot of them do. And most of them do not like paying business license. But they come in and next thing you know, Rick Quinn 2 years ago, probably he dropped one that grew legs. And what they were talking about doing was going to a flat $100 per business license fee. That would have cut pretty much the entire budget for the police and fire department. That from an amount standpoint, out of our budget. It would have been detrimental. But as soon as we all, as cities, started reporting what that impact would be on us, they said, okay, we'll come to the table and talk about this. The biggest thing is they want reform. They want a single point where businesses can go and pay multiple business licenses at one time versus having to pay a bunch of different ones independently. So the Municipal Association's working on an online payment portal that they can go on a one-stop shop and pay multiple business licenses at one time. So we are adapting. We are looking at ways to improve on business licensing so that we can try and dwindle down this threat to business license every year, because it is crucial and will be detrimental if they make any significant change. It would be a massive cut. We bring in around $800-something thousand a year. We bring in around $1.2 million a year in taxes. We bring in about $800-something thousand a year in business license. The next closest line item to that is our franchise fee from SNG, which is around $460,000 to $470,000 a year. It's our second largest general fund income. So we've got to be very conscientious about these threats that are being made to them. Just a quick snapshot of what the general fund's done. I'm going to do my best. These colors, I saw it a little bit earlier and I said, man, these are awful close. This 2014 doesn't begin until July right here, so you won't see it back here. But then you've got this green right here. It's 2015. 2016 is this darker green. 2017 is your teal color one. What you'll see is you'll see the fund balance just creeping up on the general fund side. And here's where we are currently for this year, January. And let's just use February as an example. Here is 2015, 2016, 2017, and this in all likelihood will be probably about right in here, 2018. So you'll just see the incremental increase in what that fund balance is doing. Again, this is excess funds. This is funds that the revenues exceeded the expenses. Enterprise fund, okay, this one is a lot more drastic change than what you've seen on the general fund side. This goes back to 2014. The biggest reason for this has been the reduction of wasteful spending. Over chemical cost cut in half, as well as the base rate increase being put into this mix, as well as the fact that we do transfer that monthly $51,000 over to a reserve account that has helped to build some of this fund up as well. So, revenues. So what's the percentage breakdown? As I said a while ago, tax revenue for the town accounts for 45%. Here's the business license and permits at a close 43%. And then it's more or less a drastic drop down to intergovernmental revenue is your merchant's inventory, that's your local government fund, and it's your, off the top of my head, real quick, so and Seth, brain farting.
It's in the notes, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Accommodations tax, that's it,
Yeah.
that's it. And then other revenue, this other revenue may be, it could be a number of different things. If we have insurance claims of any kind, that's gonna show as revenue. Grants that we receive from other people coming in, that's gonna show. Sale of equipment that the town may do, that'll show as revenue as well. Then we look at expenses by department. Police is around 48%. Public Works is your next largest. Your street department at 14. Administrative is at 12. Fire at 10. And then non-departmental aid, court 3, fleet 3, and council 1.
Fred,
Yes, sir.
does the Chamber of Commerce get a percentage of the accommodation tax?
No, sir.
No.
It's different.
Now, we pay them a membership on an annual basis.
The chamber gets part of the accommodation tax through Lexington County. I've sat on that board for about 3 years. So we've increased that payment from $1,300, and I think this year it's gonna be up over $15,000.
I know their accommodations has grown drastically in the county. Since Mike's been in there, he's been able to get more. On the enterprise fund, looking at our revenue, our largest percentage of revenue is from water sales, then sewer, then base, then just wholesale being Rich Spring, being our wholesale customer. They account for 9% of our revenue. And then expenses, waste sewer plant operations being, sewer operations being number 1, water operations number 2. This reserve, again, 20% of our annual budget is us accounting for that 1-year annual payment towards our water project and setting that money aside. Our utility distribution crew, which is out there repairing broken lines and everything, 10%, building department 7%, utility admin 6%, and then debt services 6%. Victims Assistance Fund, this will be the simplest budget that we deal with this year. It's one revenue coming in, and it is ultimately paying for one person to serve as our victims assistance with a little bit of office supplies in the mix there. So just looking at the current budget we're in right now, you'll see our revenues. Again, these numbers will be balanced because we're required to have a balanced budget. Our general fund's 3.8. Our water and sewer fund is a little over 3 million. Victims assistance 11. Exact same for expenditures. So a little timeline for this budget process, March to April timeframe. We are preparing the first drafted budget for you guys. Our first draft, and again, these are not necessarily hard dates. These are our timeline dates that we're operating off of. But we hope to be presenting to you guys the first draft of the budget first part of May. If we can even have it done latter part of April to be able to get you guys the first complete draft, we will have it then. We certainly want to operate faster, but we want to leave ourselves a realistic timeline. We have very important revenues that we have to project that come in. Our second largest check of the year on the general fund side comes in the middle of June. And it fluctuates up and down on an annual basis. So we have to really look at trends when we project a lot of these revenues. Hope to have first reading, and our goal is to have first reading at the regular June council meeting with a second reading around mid to around the 19th, 20th time frame. I haven't looked at the calendar dates specifically, but right around that time frame, have second and final reading. So this is what you guys are going to be presented. It's going to be in this format. It'll tell you what the line item is, the current property tax, delinquent property tax, vehicle tax, homestead exemption, You'll see here what it is. This will be our request for this year. This will be a justification for that line item. What is it? It'll explain what that line item is, what it's used for. This is what we budgeted the previous year. So this year's request, what we budgeted for last year, we will have what we've currently spent, and it'll show you the dollar amount changed on the far side. That'll be the structure of the budget that you're presented with. So when people say, all right, what exactly is homestead exemption? It's revenues received from Lexington and Saluda counties for homestead exemptions applied by citizens 65 and older. Most people 65 and older can tell you what homestead exemption is. A lot of other people may not know. But it's a break that you get once you hit the age of 65. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'd like to see one more thing on here, if it's possible.
Okay.
In between the actual and the dollar amount change.
Okay.
Because it's not, because it's gonna be year to date, whenever you give it to us, can we put a column in there that says, estimated fiscal year end, like, is it going to zero out, or do we not know if it's going to zero out? If it's a known amount,
right,
I would like to see it so that I know that whatever gap is there, there's a 1 month gap, it's going to be zero on the far right side, because it's actually going to have another column of.
There are only maybe 2 or 3 line items that I can tell you exactly what they'll be by the end of the year, realistically. And that's the franchise fee from SENG in Mid-Carolina. It's the local government fund, because we do know what we're going to get. While we're $51,000 less, we know what that's going to work out to, around $121,000 a year. And I can't think of the third one off the top of my head, but those are the only ones I can realistically tell you what the year end's going to look like.
And maybe it makes more sense to do this on the expense side.
Well, and this one, after about May, we stopped receiving money on current property tax. Now, we'll still be receiving money on vehicle tax, but I can pretty much tell you by May time frame in June, this one's pretty much done for the year. We don't expect anything else. But with regards to delinquent, the penalty, homestead, that's the third one. We get those in one check. But the state sales and use tax, these all fluctuate up and down, and they all kind of come in throughout the entire year, and it's a little harder for them. But there's a number of them I could get you pretty close to.
Estimates. I mean, I think just something that helps us. That's the only gap that I see when I look at this.
Well, and
as
this,
far as painting the full picture.
this right here,
Even if it's estimated.
yeah, well, and this right here to me is kind of your estimated what you intend to end at. That's really kind of what this request is. If we see it going up, we may ask for a little bit more.
But that number's not going to change the request, right? I mean, that number is your original number.
It can change.
That's your baseline, or does that change?
As we go through the budget process and we talk about the budget, if we may come to you guys the first meeting and, current vehicle tax, let's just say we stick with 167,000, and we get over here, we're at 134,803, but then all of a sudden we receive a much bigger chunk than what we thought we were going to give. What we'll do is we'll just bring, even after first reading, you can change these numbers. You can't change them after second reading.
Right.
So we really have up until second reading, but we try not to change anything from first reading to second reading. But we have up until second reading to fluctuate these numbers based on what we've seen. But we can tell you what, we can talk. Let me think that through and look at that and see how it really.
It wouldn't be something that it's not a column that we would hold you to. It's just a column of, like, here's what, what's maybe normal estimated in the next 2 months or 3 months or whatever.
Estimated remaining kind of
Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense.
if you look at the budget online, it's a monthly, kind of running estimate. You can almost check, see what each month is
Okay,
doing.
so that year to
Then you
date.
can almost get that column you're asking for. You can almost estimate what that's gonna be.
And what I'm giving you here is an estimate based on where we currently are. And remember, I've got
Yeah, you can
each
subtract.
each line item for the past 6 years, what it's done month by month over the past 6 years. Okay, each line item. So I can go back and look, let's say if we're in May or April, and we've got 2 months left, I can go back and tell you what penalty delinquent has done in May and June over the past 6 years, and anticipate that in addition to what we are over here. And that's how I'm gonna come up with this number. So I'm gonna look at those types of things and projecting these line items. Anything else? Okay. On the expense side, again, this was just show you revenue. The expense is really no different. We're gonna have up here, it's gonna tell you which department we're in. Over here, salary and wages. Here's what we requested in this previous budget. Here's what we're requesting this year. Here's the dollar amount change, and here's where we are at the current date that we hand it to you. And a red justification right there in the middle that tells you what it's used for. Excuse me one second. So our fiscal year, July 1 to June 30th. Budget prep, we're already underway. It's doing line item evaluations. It's looking where we're currently at. It's going through general ledger reports that shows you every expense out of every line item through every month of the year. Seeing what's trending correctly. Are we trending high? Are we trending low? Have we brought in more? Have we brought in less? It's a big evaluation to every single line item that we have in the town. It's getting with department heads at this point. What are your needs and what are your wants? They're two different things. We have needs, we have wants. We will have needs in a category here, we will have wants here. And we will try and work this based on what we have available at our discretion. But let's never let wants outweigh needs. That's a big thing that we look at. Again, first reading, June regular meeting, second reading, mid to late June. This year, we have our first annual action plan. You guys have told us you want to continue to address and mediate the consent order of the town. More specifically, the water project. Make some progress towards that. Looking at new funding options to enhance the community. Family community events, so create more family and community events, and a comprehensive plan, getting it updated. That was 4 things that we took. So those are 4 items that as we prepare this budget, these will be taken into account to make sure that we're getting these funded.
Let's bring that water project to a final game plan by the end of the year.
Please.
Amen, amen.
Nothing would make me happier, or Tim Sanford happier, or any of us. So, again, the creation process is taking y'all's vision, y'all's annual action plan, prepping the budget, doing department head reviews, looking at equipment needs versus wants. What are the human capital needs? We also talked about staffing needs as a part of the vision, our annual action plan for this coming year. We have a bunch of people on the utility side that are 2 to 3 years out. Well, just so you know, at the wastewater treatment plant, you have to be a minimum of B operator to work that plant and operate it by yourself. And at the water plant, you have to be a minimum of C operator. Well, to become a C operator, you're looking at 2 years,
Trainee and D and C.
about 2 years,
About 4 years, 3 to 4 years, probably.
3 to 4 years to
Trainee,
get someone C
2
op.
years. Look,
So 2 to 3 to 4 years to get people to C and B certification levels. Well, if we've got people retiring in the next 3 to 5 years, we've got to have people prepared to take over. So we've got to look on the utility side this year at bringing some training level people in to begin this certification process and experience process.
You can't hire anybody that's already got to be, see?
It's tough, man, when you look at bigger cities like Columbia that, I mean, we just can't match what they're paying. You've got Augusta and.
Yeah, but I'm afraid that you're gonna train somebody and they're gonna run off and get a big payday.
Well, you always run that risk.
We run that risk. We run that risk on the police side. We run that risk on the fire side. We run it across every department. We just cannot.
Every business in town.
We just cannot pay what bigger cities are able to pay.
We're struggling to compete with Lexington and Aiken.
I mean, Lexington County deputy coming through the gate, new is a little over 40.
Is what?
A little over 40. That's about 10 grand more than we can.
But what's the city office's name? What's the city office?
Oh, city about $56,000 a year. Brett Pool's got a pot of gold. I tell him that all the time.
Hospitality.
No.
What is the county, what is the city of Lexington office?
No.
I'm joking.
Do I, Steve?
I said H-tags, but I'm joking.
You know, to make me damn chuckle. No, could be, I should be, right?
Oh, I thought, nah, you all right.
What is the city of Lexington officer's name?
55 to 56,000.
In the county?
Around mid-40s. Low to mid-40s.
And our folks make what? Some
Low
folks make
30,
it wild.
low 30s to 34,
Talk
35.
about mid-range, because some people may see clear and.
Yeah. So,
All right.
I mean, there's a gap, and it's a gap that you just cannot compete with sometimes. But what we'll tell people too is you'll go to Lexington County and you will literally run calls from the moment you walk in to the moment you leave. You will have a call pending. You will finish and you will go to another. So sometimes people don't always want to hunt to the bigger cities because you are going to work a lot harder and do a lot more there than you can here. So we're going to look at trend analysis, current year plus 5 previous years. We're going to the future is projected based upon the average and known factors. There are so many elements to go into looking at every line item. Not just looking at the past trend, but thinking about what's going to happen this year. Has any news broke on something that we know is going to impact this line item? Has PASCON sent us something saying they're going up 5% on their sludge removal? We receive letters of notification all the time. So there's just a lot that we have to look at on each line item. A lot of line items we can hit really quick. But there's a lot that we really have to think about, a bunch of different factors plus the trend, what that line item's done over 5 years. Big thing to keep in mind right here, 90% of our budget is fixed. It's reoccurring. It's not something we can change. Utility bills are utility bills that we have to pay. Healthcare costs are healthcare costs, retirement costs, salaries and wages. A lot of that in property and casualty insurance, inland marine insurance. 90% of our budget's fixed. There's very little that we have that is what you would call discretionary, be able to move it from here to here and to say, this is more important than this. Annual challenges, we see growth, we see declines, and here's always the fun when every 5 years the county comes in and reassesses property. That can take you up or that can take you down. You don't know until their reassessment is done. Now, fortunately, we don't have to worry about this again, I think, for 3 more years. I think it was last done 2 years ago. So we've got about 3 more years of where we're at on that before another reassessment. Now, Act 388 of state law does allow you, if you lose money from reassessment, you can impose millage to make that up.
That's
Never-
that's very popular.
It's very popular, very popular, but, just throwing that out there, but we've got 3 more years before you have to worry about it. Rising cost of goods and services, again, like I said, we get letters from Centos, Pascon, all these different providers that we use on an annual basis. And you're seeing a CPI increase of this, you're seeing a CPI increase of this, so. State and county mandates, we talked about that earlier, and then council commitments. Things come up throughout the year, whether it's basketball court, or whether it's judge's insurance, or whether no matter what it is, different things pop up. We, like, a budget is a projection. But it does not mean that things do not come up in the middle of the year that the council wants to take advantage of. So when those things come up, we have to look at our budget.
And in the trend analysis, we're looking back 6 years to get that trend. Are we, I mean, do you also have like a 5-year projected or a 10-year, anything like that that just?
I have not done a 5-year projected at this point. It's taken long enough to get to the 5 years back because some line items have been combined over the past 5 years. This has been pulled into this, so you have to go back and really look at 2 to end up with 1. We've gotten that built. I think once now would probably not be the best time to do that.
No, I'm not saying.
But once
do it
July
now, I'm just
1
asking a
comes,
question.
we could go back and what we could essentially do is let's go to a current property tax. Let's just use that one. If we're seeing that we're increasing that 1.5% on an annual basis, we got 1.5% more coming in, then we could do a trend analysis for the next 5 that shows 1.5% growth, what that's going to work out to. So I think it's something we can work towards.
It'd be a good idea, you know, I mean, it's not in stone or anything like that, it's just nice to see where we're headed.
Oh, yeah. And we may not have to do that with every line item we got. I think we could put a focus on some of our major line items with that are more impactful. But we have hundreds and hundreds of line items. I think we have 9 budgets in the general fund side. We've got 5 or 6 budgets in the enterprise fund side. Then we've got the victims assistance, and within those budgets, there may be 30 to 40 line items within each of those budgets. So there's hundreds of line items, and I think we could do it. What we would have to do is focus on some of the bigger ones that maybe fluctuate more or will have more impact on that outlook. Projecting revenue, listen, it's either known, unknown, or we're just looking at trends. We get hit with a lot of unknowns.
Just like life, everyday life.
It's everyday life. We get hit with unknowns all the time. We have knowns that don't occur. It's no hidden science. I mean, the best thing we can do really is this right here. Look at trends and project. That's what we do to most of. Here are some known challenges that we have for this so talking about this upcoming budget, we know we've got the indigent defense $6,000. We know we've got a retirement increase on the general fund side of $18,500. We know we've got the health care insurance, $11,400. We know we have to buy a dispatch console that's going to be $30,000 out of pocket for us this year. We need to look at police pay from a recruitment and retention standpoint. We got an issue with recruitment and retention. We've got to look at this. Advanced disposal, our contract ends with them June 30th. This is something we're going to discuss next council meeting in executive session, is about contractual matters with Advance. But we've got a choice: are we going to RFP or are we going to renew with Advance? But that is something we'll talk about at the regular meeting April 9th. The comprehensive plan update, I can tell you it's going to be between $7,000 and $9,000, somewhere around that mark. Gregory has not sent me the exact cost for the COG to assist us with that update, but we're going to be between 7 and 9 roughly for that. Enterprise fund, $7,000 increase, and then the staffing. Bringing people in and starting to get them trained. So that means paying for some additional personnel to prepare for these retirements. That's the presentation. That is an outlook. It's kind of an education on what the town budget is and how it's structured and the process. But questions? If you don't have them now and you think of one, you can email me or call me. I'll be happy to give you my best answer possible.
Perfect. Share with the group, if you would.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if someone does ask a budget question, or a question off of this presentation, I will, as a matter of fact, they can't get that. Email it to me, I'll share it.
Item number,
Yes, sir.
When a councilman requests information from you, can you send it out to all council people so that we will all know, have that information?
Yes, sir.
Now, these challenges, what's the game plan to meet those for this budget?
I'm gonna do my best to look at everything. I will tell you this, here's some positives. But the positives, you gotta be careful with I know one of these. We have far exceeded our building permit revenue for this year due to recent development of new homes and businesses. You gotta be careful though. Just because we exceeded by $20,000 this year don't mean we need to up it 20,000. People could stop building tomorrow, and then we're not gonna have that revenue next year. I mean, I think we can look at, all right, over the past 5 years, we've seen an incremental increase. I mean, we increased it pretty, I think $10,000 or $15,000 in permit fees from last year, and we far exceeded that. It's enough to get excited about. The last thing we want to go and do is slap $30,000 additional dollars on it for next year, and then we come in $15,000 short of that. Now we've got underestimated revenue line item. So we got to be careful. I think we'll be able to go up in that line item, certainly. I do think looking at the business license revenue line item right now and the way it's trending, it is trending higher because we do have some new businesses that have opened up, and that's thousands more coming in. Right now we're trending high, but we still have a couple important payments to receive through telecommunications taxes and brokers taxes and things that we're still waiting to see those come through. We need to see what they do before we get too excited about that one. But we may have room to go up on the business license side as well. But if that's the case, I don't know what I'm waiting, SENG should be hitting us with our franchise amount for this coming year. Hopefully that will be increasing with some of the new homes we've had developed. Every house inside the town, minus 4 houses, are SENG. So between businesses and new homes that have been built, hopefully that'll go up some. Local government fund, I don't look for it to go down anymore, but I know it's not going to go up, so that should stay the same. So again, it's looking at these revenues, knowing these challenges. I can't tell you what the outcome right now is going to be, Mr. Charles. I can't do it.
Now, have you projected, estimated, if we can get the H-tax passed before July 1, how that would impact the challenges that we face for this year?
Well, I can tell you, conservative H-tax estimate, I'm gonna go $425,000. Conservative. There are a number of factors that we don't know that could certainly make it much more. Philo Deli, Walmart Deli, IGA Deli, Mom and Pop's food sales, Quick Carry's hot dog sales. That list could go on and on.
Walmart may be phasing out their deal. Yeah, I've heard.
But I can tell you, Walmart Deli is not in the 425, so that's why I can conservatively say 425, because that's solely restaurants in town. solely restaurants, that I know 100% of what they do is H-taxable, if that's a word.
And
What could it do? Our current park maintenance and repair, utility cost in parks,
That's coming out.
overtime
general fund
paid related to town events that we currently have.
We're gonna call time out on that.
Well,
We could have a
So-
hospitality tax discussion at
So,
another time.
what
Yeah,
he-
because the thing about it is, if we already have preconceived notions about what we're gonna use the $425,000 for, what do you need a committee for?
We need to.
No, I don't
I'm
think there was a
just saying, but you
preconceived
know,
notion
that
on
wasn't
this
my question.
discussion.
I'm just saying,
It
but let's not
wasn't
talk
a
about what we're gonna do with the
question.
money.
It was a,
budgeting
17, 18.
So he was asking what
18, 19
impact
budget
could it potentially have?
The impact on the.
Well, you know you're gonna budget 425. That, if I was budgeting the whole year, I'd probably use 425 as the number from a conservative standpoint this year. I think that's known that we would do.
And what percentage of that can you?
I don't have a
project?
percentage number off the top of my head, but I know that there are current expenses paid from the general fund that are used towards events that draw people into the community and the town, and some of those associated costs with the parks and recreation stuff that could be offset and that paid for in the future out of H-tax, which would open up some, I don't wanna say a lot, it won't be a lot, some funds within the general fund. But that's a discussion for a night of H-tax.
Absolutely.
Well, don't we need to have that discussion before July 1?
I prefer so. I don't think that's a hidden secret.
I think that was on the priority list for this year.
It was. It was. It was one of council's annual action plan items.
Right.
Well, gentlemen, first you gotta decide when you're gonna do it, but before that, you gotta have a plan as to what you're gonna do.
Right.
When the money is coming in to pay for it. Now, this money don't come in at one time.
It's gonna be,
might 3 or 4
it's gonna
months
be
later.
close, it's gonna be close to 35 to 40,000 projected roughly a month coming in.
That might not sound like the amount you was looking for, but it's more money than we got now, and if we plan projects,
Yeah. But let's get the projects going. It sounds like the projects are already cut by maybe $100,000.
What do you mean?
Oh, I don't think.
No.
There's that much.
No, when I'm talking about some costs that are already in general fund,
I don't think so.
we're not at $100,000.
but then again, just because you get the money, you don't wanna go all wild.
No. You gotta have a committee. You gotta have somebody.
And guys, I'm gonna say this is quick discussion thing about H-tax. You can't even bond with H-tax for 3 years. You cannot even bond a project for 3 years. With H-tax money.
I'm more
So
concerned about.
if bonding's gonna be where your big projects come in, you're gonna be talking smaller projects until you can get to the point that you can bond any significant amount of money.
Since we talking about, my concern is that we have somebody that does this every day. This is their job, this is what they do.
Where's that money coming from?
From the H-tax, you can pay the salary,
You can pay salary with H-tax.
You cannot pay the salary.
Administrative costs can't come out?
No,
sure?
yeah, you can
have
actually,
administrative costs
you
come
can
out.
pay, there's a few personnel costs that would be approved.
Yeah, you
Administrative
can have somebody to administer the funds. The problem, like, again, I go back to that we have, particularly with that industrial park, is that, we're paying $250,000 a year on the industrial park, and nobody's really marketing the industrial park anymore.
Well, you won't be able to pay for that at a.
Well, I understand that, I'm just saying that,
I mean,
as an example.
Right. That's an
of
economic
something
development.
Right, but that's something that we have out here on the table, and nobody in the town hall is marketing that's a big thing out there. $1.8 million, that's a big cost to us that's out there. And if the opportunity is what everybody say it is, we need to have somebody marketing that thing every single day. That should be somebody's assignment, whether it's twice a week or 3 times a week, that they do something to market that industrial park. Because what's gonna happen is we're gonna wind up paying it off, and we're never gonna have anything that generates any income.
Well, you had said that was around 50,000 a year, I think is what you told me,
What's that?
to have somebody market.
I don't know, we haven't even been able to really, I mean, I'm ignorant. I don't know what it would cost, but I definitely would like to have somebody, maybe the same person that's doing the hospitality can also do something with the industrial park. But to sit here and let the county, every year that I've been on council, the county has said, oh, we got somebody looking at it, We're very close to it, we just need water up there, or we just need to cut the roads in, we need, and nothing. 12 years, nothing.
Steve, this is not a plug for the municipal association, but they have people on staff, streetscape.
They absolutely
They do that every day, and they'd be more than happy to send a person down here.
You talking about the Main Street program?
Yeah, Main Street.
Yeah, they absolutely do. All I'm saying is that that's not taking
Definitely
our
utilize that, yeah.
Pardon?
We should definitely utilize that.
Well, yeah, you can use Gregory Spouse. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, I'm not advocating that we spend a whole ton of money.
Right.
No,
But-
you don't, but you need to have somebody that's qualified,
Right,
and just not a good old boy.
that's correct.
Qualified,
Right.
know what they're doing.
Yes, but we got to, but listen, we as a council have to actually do something on this, because we can't be led or misled or whatever by the county to do this. We can't leave it to staff to do it. We're gonna have to step up to the plate and direct this, because 1.8 million is a lot of money. $232,000 a year. That's a lot of money that we spend. So, and I don't want to see.
The county did hire a economic development director last year.
Yeah, but then
Who meets with us every month.
Yeah, but what has he done in 12 years?
He's working on getting.
Okay, well, they've been working on it for 12 years.
No, he just came on.
I understand, but before that, you had Chuck Whittle, right?
Not Chuck. Chuck's gone.
I know what I'm saying, but before him, you had Chuck that met. Yeah, and Chuck met with the.
Chuck didn't do nothing.
But he met with, that was his job to do. What he did.
Yeah, but I'll say this. You are not gonna get someone in industrial park until the water and sewer is in the ground. They are not gonna come with a commitment that you will
You
put
got
water
water
and
and sewer
sewer.
in the ground over there.
It has been, and it's been
you
in the
got
ground
future
for
takeover
less
there.
than a year.
What you don't have is somebody who, on your staff, is charged with that task, which is to either work with the municipal association, work with COG, work with the county. The Economic Development Committee at the Chamber has no authority. You know what I'm saying? You need to have somebody whose job it is to get this industrial park off the ground, because we're wasting too much money on it.
Well, see, that's gonna be a challenge.
Well, that's what we're here for.
At the municipal level, because see, when businesses are interested in coming into the state or the county, they go to the state level first to see what kind of church they can
We
get.
got Katrina Sheila numbers.
Well, that's
she
what
not
we're
a
saying,
nurse.
we got people in place.
Well, I'm saying, but
Up the ladder.
who does Katrina Shealy pick up the phone and call at Batesburg-Leesville and say, I met with Boeing?
She gonna call the county first.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying, Charles, is that we need somebody watching out for Batesburg back. We need somebody from the town who's calling Katrina, who will take a day and go over to the Capitol, like the rest of the lobbies do, and pull her out of a session and say, hey, Senator, where are we with this industrial park? Cal is available to us. But if you don't have somebody advocating for us for that industrial park, you're just sitting there wasting money waiting on Lexington County to determine our destiny.
I think
We cannot do that.
I think we're all agree, Steve, that
Okay.
we need to make it a focus, and certainly it's a lot of money. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anything else for today, 7:30, we can kind of get out of here?
7:30?
Sounds good to me.
7:30, how about that, go home a little bit.
No, check some homework.
Somebody made that motion.
So,
Second.
Motion,
Somebody make it.
Can I get a unanimous yes?
Amen.
There we go, thank you guys.